Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of Dada Mlinzi in Swahili, My Sister's Keeper. This is a platform where sisters are together, they feel together, heal together, and rise together. And I am so privileged. I am so privileged on this edition to be able to share the platform with two powerful, impactful women of God, women of the kingdom, and women who are also very community-minded. On this edition of Dada Mlinzi, we will be examining the topic of gender-based violence. And not just gender-based violence in its widest sense of the word, but gender-based violence and the role of the church in curbing gender-based violence among women and girls. To help me tonight in examining this topic is Ambassador of Hope, the president of Prominent Women Foundation, Ramona Riley. Welcome, Ramona.
Thank you, Pastor Tarana, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you and with your fellow guests as well. And I'm looking forward to the discussion this evening.
Yes, certainly. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I am super excited for this as well. It's been a long time coming. I would also like to introduce our second guest, our panelist. She comes with a wealth of experience. She has a master's in Christian education and theology. And she has come a long way. Very, very acquainted with a lot of what we'll be speaking about tonight. Pastor Arlene Richardson, welcome to Dada Mlinzi.
Thank you. Good night, Pastor. Thank you for having me and our fellow ambassador to speak on women issues tonight. It's a great topic, and we need to discuss it. And it's a lot of things that are going on with women that sometimes we tend to sweep under the carpet to make it comfortable. But tonight we're going to bring out some of those issues. Thank you.
Yes, you are certainly welcome. You know when Jesus said, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And so it is important to speak truth, our own truth, and then truth to all of these issues, the myriad of issues that are, plaguing society today. Because I genuinely and firmly believe that the church has the role, the mandate of transforming society. And we can only do that through truth. So nothing will be swept under the carpet tonight, as much as it is possible. We're laying everything bare because we want freedom to come forth from out of it, right? And when truth is established, then there is freedom that comes after. To begin our discussion, ladies, I want to read an excerpt from a project that I am working on, something that I am working on, and I would like to share this, and then I would like to hear your reactions to what it is that I am going to read. And those of you who are looking at us on our YouTube channel, Alive to Purpose, this is a good time for you to click that subscribe button and subscribe to the channel so that you can get more content like this and also notifications when we are next online with programming. And so I'm going to read this, and I would love to hear your reactions to start off our discussion. You a bunch of heathens and hypocrites. I'm appointed to the Bible. If people don't want the word, then go the way of the goat. But as for me, I will remain a sheep, and nobody will stand in my way. Move over, devil. Reverend Shatar is here. I am the father, prophet, and priest of this flock, and no wolf will touch my lambs. The crowd erupted in jubilant shouts of yes and amen. As if on cue, the musicians started a jazzy rhythm. The drum beats grew louder. Echoes of simultaneous screams and high-pitched shrieks pealed through the auditorium. The suave, middle-aged speaker pounded the pulpit with his fist. It kept time with the beat. The cacophony of song was bewildering at first, but well-dressed bodies danced in the pews. Wiping the sweat from his brow with a monogrammed handkerchief, he continued, "All my life I have walked in holiness. If I can do it, you can too. No woman could stop me. No car can stop me. And I have the battle scars to prove. I know the way." The music receded into the background. An irreverent stillness came over the room. All eyes were on Reverend Shatar. There was a spirit of expectancy in the air. His next words would be super important, perhaps even recorded in the annals of history. He sensed it too, and beginning in a hushed tone that steadily grew bombastic, he proclaimed, "No more excuses. This walk with me will take discipline. Let us journey together, my children. Let us journey from the highest mountain and down into the deepest sea. I will carry you on my backs. I will take the whiplash. Just trust me, and you will be failure-free." Overwhelmed with emotion, 3 women ran to the elevated platform and threw themselves at Reverend Shatar's feet. He bent down, ever so slowly, and in a fatherly embrace, the paragon of compassion kissed each one of them on the forehead. Someone in the crowd began singing, "I surrender all." It sounded more like a wailing than lustily singing, but like wildfire, the refrain quickly reverberated through the congregation. Seeing the congregation in the throes of euphoria, Reverend Shatar elegantly retreated into the area behind the choir loft for a water break. There, his wife stood with a glass of lemon-infused water on a gold platter. Hauntingly, the singing continued, with melodies creeping behind the curtain. He dared not delay, as the platform was a soulless vacuum without his presence, but he was parched. Grabbing the glass to quench his thirst, he took one big gulp. "Wretch, this water is cold. I need room temperature," he reacted angrily, before grabbing the platter and smacking his wife on the right side of her head. A falling angel, the shepherd had clearly lost his way. Your reactions, ladies, to something that I am working on.
You want me to go first, Pastor?
Go first, Pastor.
My reaction to that, I remember listening to a story where this man said he found himself in hell. He had an accident and he found himself in front of God. And the angels were showing him the different places as to where he ought to be. And the last place he was shown, it was hell. And he said, "I have no reason to be there. I am a man of God. I did all the work. I put out the work. I did this, I did that for you." And God said, "You left one little thing unfinished. You don't speak to your wife. Because you didn't speak, you have a animosity with your wife. And you have unforgiveness towards her. You're not speaking to her. Even though you did all these great works, you're not going to enter heaven." And sometimes we put on a show. And for the show and for all the things that are happening around us, and the people think we are perfect and we are God, and the experiences, we don't share the true experiences in life, that hasn't to be a problem. And like he said, he put himself first, forgetting that God is the ultimate factor for deliverance, for healing, for the process. So sometimes we got to take ourselves out of the place and put God first for the healing and deliverance. But through our experiences in life, we have a chance to share and help others to come with the experiences that we have had so that they can overpass what they're going to, what they have encountered. Because in the experiences, we were able to speak out. Once we were able to speak out, he was doing the big show, but his wife, she was not being treated as a person. He was treating her less, like she's the maid. And then the violence coming in. But then you wouldn't see that, because the Bible says you see a man's face, you never see his heart. And that is a very big issue we have today. Seeing the face, seeing the cloth with the clothes, and we never see the heart.
Thank you, Pastor. You know, gender-based violence has become something so pervasive in society that the United Nations has made this one of their priority areas of focus as well. And so I believe that they're also expecting the church to address this. Ambassador Ramona, when you hear that type of narrative, does it sound realistically like what is happening, especially in our community?
Yes, you know, it is amazing how we get caught up in all the eloquent words and you know the compassion that these people speak, you know, the passionate way that they bring forth these words, you know. But one of the things we need to look at, that you will really tell how a person, where they stand, is how they treat those closest to them. It was so important. All he said, what he did at the end there, he nullified everything. Because that wife, you know, for me, when the Bible says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church, you know, that me, that goes to show that, and it is something that I spoke about, that, you know, with a pastor, actually, how this happens in church, because we're talking about domestic violence and gender-based violence in the community, but a lot of time we forget that it also happens within our churches, the ministries, you know, and it starts sometime at the pulpit. And this is where I believe that, you know, it is time that we take a serious look at this issue, because as you said, Pastor T, that the church has to lead by example. We are God's government in the earth, and if the church does not get it right, we cannot expect those outside to get it right. And I believe that this is something that is happening. It's time to uncover it, to no longer, you know, hide it and sweep it under the rug, as you said. We have to confront this issue.
Definitely. I often hear this saying, even from my apostle, Dr. Eleni, that you cannot conquer unless you first confront. We have to face the issue, acknowledge that, yes, this is something that is happening in our community. Will I help in perpetuating that violence or that abuse, or will I do something to minimize it, to help eliminate it? I believe not one single person has the solution, but collectively, you know, if we all do our part, not only us as sisters, but the men coming alongside us and other organizations, if we do it collectively together, then we will be able to address this issue of gender-based violence. And to your point, Pastor Arlene, because you were mentioning earlier about things that can cause us to come out of the kingdom, isn't it so remarkable that some folks will think that I can do this much in terms of the works or having the gifts, but then the fruit is something completely opposite that can disqualify them from that inheritance that they're supposed to receive. Because a lot of times we take the Bible out of context, I think, and especially in our part of the world, in our community, women are trained and nurtured and taught to submit. submit, endure, have long suffering. You are the wife and you are the weaker vessel. Yes, he abused you. Forgive. Love covers a multitude of sins. How much is too much in terms of us encouraging women and girls to stay in situations like those when they're under the hand of an abusive partner?
How much
For
is
me,
too much?
Not at all, right?
Go ahead, Pastor. I know you wanted to say something.
I would not encourage anybody to be staying on the abusive situation. You can wait 100 times for the man to block up your eye, send you to the hospital, and almost kill you before you get out. And that has been happening because people see the signs. They don't have to see the signs, but it's because of the financial stability. And sometimes it's because they have seen the parents or so go through it. And sometimes they have been forewarned. You know the man is no good, and if you go with it, don't come back. So sometimes they don't have anywhere to go, no person to turn to. And then he's a narcissist, so he comes back and tell them, you don't see how you're living, look how your family the guy, you're young, no good. You don't change your clothes, you don't get your hair done. Come back and I treat you better. Forgive me. And then because of the financial stability, some people go back until death. It's you. You have to come with yourself that I'm not going to put up with this. And you have to speak out and you have to say these things before you get into the relationship. You have to have the conversation because people see signs before. The man just don't let out his cloven foot when he gets married. You see the signs. It's for you to take them and run with them. Sometimes even us as pastors can counsel them. You can ask them what it is that they think. Let them wait. And they would say, oh, pastor married. And they want me to get married. This thing sometimes is about having a husband. And then the teachings of a covering. And they want this persona of me and my husband. Sometimes that is your death. As my apostle used to say, Bambai, you're going to find out when the drum play in Guyana. The East Indians just beat a drum and we say, Bambai, you're going to find out. Marriage is a good thing, but Bambai, you're going to find out. So don't wait to find out that your death is coming. Speak out. Ask for counseling. Come to somebody. But I'm not going to wait with my two eyes, black and blue, for me to wait. I am married for 20 years this year on the 26th of July. It's not been an easy road, but I'm not a silent person. I'm not going to sit and let my husband just tell me what it is, but I'm in place in a society where I can do that. There's some people in a different society. I'm submissive as a wife, but submissive till that? No, I'm not even as a pastor.
Thank you. You said such a mouthful, Pastor Arlene. You said a mouthful there, really. And on that topic of submitting one to the other, but submission meaning follow me as I follow Christ. Submission in a particular context. Based on all that Pastor Arlene would have said just now, Ambassador Ramona, how important is it for the church to foster a supportive environment and community for people who are finding themselves in situations like this, especially if they've been abandoned by their family because they went against what the family said and married that person who turned out to be an abuser?
You know, it is extremely important because the church should be the first place that a woman or a man, for that matter, can turn to, you know, for assistance, for understanding. And one of the things, Pastor T, that I believe that's happening within the church, that a lot of this is is going over the pastor's head. They don't understand what domestic violence is. They don't understand what the abuse is. It's not as easy when you are in a situation to get out of it. Because especially in that faith-based setting, a lot of times scriptures have been used to keep women in this situation. Submission is one of them. What did you do? Love him more. Do this more. The burden is put on the woman at most 99.9% of the times. And this is wrong. These are teachings that have cost women their lives. And I believe that the church has to do a better. Number one, they need to become more aware of what abuse is, the domestic violence, intimate partner violence, what it is about, what are the different forms of abuse. Because a lot of people think that physical abuse is the only form of abuse. There's so much more. There's the financial abuse, there's the sexual abuse, the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse. There's so much more that the church needs to, from the pastor down, at least there's someone in your ministry that is capable or qualified to be able to assist these victims, or even give lectures and whole sessions, so you can bring everyone aware what are the signs of domestic violence. Narcissists, they are very charming people, and and this is where women, you have a hard time proving your case, because people will look at that gentleman and say, but not him, he's so helpful, he's so nice, he's so this, and then it all looks back at you. What did you do? And now you as the victim have to now come and be victimized all over again. And I think that the church needs to get to the place and understand the abuse that happens. And I think for not knowing, as a pastor, you don't know everything. As an apostle, you don't know everything. So there must be someone in your ministry that can take the lead, send them to a training, send them to a workshop, so they understand what is happening, so that when a woman comes to you, that you are able then to understand. Domestic violence, intimate partner violence is something, if you haven't, once you lived it, you will understand. You can see the signs, you can recognize certain things. But if you have not, it's very difficult for someone who has no clue of what happens during that time to really understand, because you would think that woman, something is wrong with her. It's her fault. And for me in the church, sending women back to that place of, just go back and try, pray, stay and pray. No, I can leave and pray as well. Telling women to stay in an abusive situation that can cost them their lives. I think that God doesn't want that for any of his children. And as Pastor said, I would never tell a woman to stay in an abusive relationship. No, I would never do that.
Yes, Pastor Eileen, you were saying something?
No, it's listening.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Ambassador Ramona. I want to read a little excerpt here. Remaining in an abusive relationship, because you touched on every facet of the church's responsibility in covering, in building that person's faith, in comforting, in protecting the flock, in supporting. You touched on so many aspects, and it's not that it's not supported by scripture, because scripture tells us, for example, in Isaiah 1 and verse 17, learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. 2 Samuel chapter 22 and verse 49, the Lord rescues from violent men. Well, this can be male or female, but in the context of gender-based violence, we know that God is super big. It's part of the kingdom principles, a part of the mandate of heaven in terms of justice and taking care of those who are oppressed. That's why Jesus came. He said the Spirit of the Lord was upon him for this, to break open prison bars. And this is staying in an abusive relationship, I believe, is one form of imprisonment. And Jesus came that we might have freedom, that we might have life, that we might live in our fullness in Him, and many times we don't look at these scriptures from Micah, like Micah 6 and verse 8, that says, what does the Lord require of you? To walk humbly before your God, to love mercy, to do justice. Psalms chapter 82, verse 3 and 4 also talks about delivering people from those who are oppressing them. And so the church indeed has a role, and us as sisters, it might not start in a corporate setting, but even in the women's group, for example, if you have a women's group and you find that as a leader you're not so equipped, you do not understand the biblical foundation, or you're not equipped with the counseling and so forth, it is okay to refer to someone else who has the capabilities, who has the expertise, or invite people in. Do not cover it up. I believe that the victims of gender-based violence, women and girls, they should not have to choose between their safety and their faith, meaning, I want to serve God in spirit and in truth, I want to be in the body of the brethren, but I'm not safe, and when I am there, I am bombarded, I am browbeaten with certain scriptures that makes me feel exactly like what Ramona just explained to us. And so you say, listen, I'm just going to suffer in silence. There is no help here. The people cannot empathize with what I am going through. We need to change that.
Yes, a lot of women, if I may, Pastor T, they keep silent out of fear of judgment from the church. And because you're not holy enough, because if something is wrong with you, and a lot of women will keep quiet because if I go to pastor, if you have a women's group, and as you said, it's important that if you have a women's group, this is not just about sipping a cup of tea and coffee and having a nice chit chat, but you must be a support. You have to be a sanctuary where those women, when they come to you, that they can feel free to share their struggles and whatever they're going through with you, and be that safe space for them.
Definitely. Pastor,
in Revelation chapter 12.
Go ahead.
Revelation chapter 12 verse 2 says, we overcome by the words of our mouth and our testimonies. And if we overcome, some people don't want to speak up. They are too embarrassed because of that. But if you come and you speak up, then you're labeled, that's the first part. And you don't have to do it quietly or silently. Once you come and you shame the devil, he's going to be shamed. You let people know exactly what is going on. I know some people would judge, but you got to be brave enough to know that this is what I need. I need a help at all costs. And you got to make up your mind that somebody can listen to me today with what I got to say. They're going to understand what I got to say and where I'm coming from. But if you stay there suffering in silence and you put on the fake smile and the fake thing, you're going to go. Continue with it. When I was a child growing up, and you see a man holding a woman's hand and walking down the road, used to think it's a love thing. But getting older and getting to understand, it's a control thing. He holding her hand and controlling the woman. She can't move spacely. She can't say nothing, and then she got to put on this fake smile. There's a lot of things people go through in society for this thing. And because we are Christians, and a lot of people suffer because of the Christianity, as we say. And even the men, because they say, some of them say submissive. They play nice, but they don't like us as women, as pastors. They play nice, but they say, oh, I sitting down under no woman, she's supposed to speak. They call it petticoat government. They don't need a petticoat government. It's why she feels she can preach. But they know the truth from the Bible. When they were learning, they came for it, they come for the teaching. But then the men have a society, it's their ego and their pride. And unless the women bond together, and bring down these men ego and their pride. When these men put on the face, the women look as the very bad factor. That man is quiet, he goes to work. The wife is the one you just hear her mouth. The women don't, the men don't, they don't hear the silence. And we really need some groups, some cell groups that these women could speak out. Not only cell groups, we need place where they can be safe. Not for 1 day or 2 days, because these men, when they plan, they come after you with everything. You have to make sure that women and children are very safe. And sometimes it happens in the house. It's not only this, it's not only that silent part for the man, but it's spirit, as Ambassador said, it's spiritual, it's physical, and it's economic rape. Both of those are the problems that we have when it comes to these things.
And I believe also what the church needs to do, these communities of faith, there must be some systems of accountability. Once you are aware of a woman comes to you and says, this is what is happening, don't try to figure out what she did wrong. You call that man in and have a talk with him and put accountability in place, some system of accountability that that woman feels, that at least I have their ear, they're listening to me. Because once a woman gets that, she is then more willing to share, to be more open and share more. But if from the get-go she doesn't get that her concerns, that she matters, then she's going to shut down. And this is something, you can't really blame someone for shutting down, because if I go to someone that I trust and you don't take a step to find out what happened, what is happening with that person, or you bring us both together, that's one of the worst things that you can do, bring both parties together at the same time, because someone she's going to be shut down again. And so these are things that happen in the church, that bringing both parties together to no, you don't do that, because that woman she's going to shut down and she's not going to say anything.
Wow.
Yes, as you said that.
Just a minute, Pastor, if you can just elaborate on that, because we have been taught to, if there is an offender, one who feels the offense, you bring the persons together, let them lay their charge, and then you see if you can reconcile or you can mediate. But especially when you're dealing with people that are displaying certain narcissistic tendencies, they use it as an opportunity to shame, once again, the victim, to further traumatize. And we have had some intimate experiences where the woman is as if it's abuse all over again. Verbal, emotional abuse. The abuser takes the opportunity now on a greater stage or a grander stage to further degrade that woman. And so if you can just elaborate on that, what can we do then as wise interventions, especially if both persons are in the same faith-based community?
One of the things I believe what we must do is believe the survivors or the victim's story. You must believe them. You got to believe them, because if you don't believe them, you will not take any action. You have to believe them, number one. Listen without judgment, because you have to put what you know about someone aside. Because you're not living with that person. I always heard my parents, my father say in particular, to see me and to live with me are two different things. And this is where we miss it at times, because we know someone. I know you, Pastor T, on this level, but I don't know you intimately. I don't know you 24/7. And so if your spouse were to say to me, what she did is, who am I to say no that she didn't do that, And this is where I believe the church has to be very careful, listen without being judgmental, and validate the feeling of the victim. Let her know that you understand, and you're gonna do your investigation. You're gonna have a talk with the abuser, the perpetrator, and then you have to find now to get her to safety, make sure that she's safe, let her know, what do you want? Do you have somewhere you can go, or how can we assist you? Can we put her up in a hotel, or find ways, help with housing, offer referrals. Maybe you know what? You tell her, listen, this is as much as we can do. Let me refer you to a therapist. These are provide resources. Maybe that woman is unemployed. How is the church going to help her financially to take care of her? Maybe she has children. And these are all of the things that the church needs to be aware. You need to have a department or something in place that to assist not only women of your ministry, but society in general. I believe that.
Very awesome, Ramona. And once again, you have said a mouthful there, and I am just reflecting on what was mentioned earlier with having the different women groups, that when we have the ladies fellowship and these women groups and so forth, it's not just for the agenda of planning, for example, our next tea party or our hat parade, or how to dress modestly as a woman, how to be the ideal wife. But it is more than that, to be able to have a sisterhood where we discuss issues that are very relevant to the existence, to the empowerment of the females in our community, and not only be reactive but proactive.
Yes.
Have systems in place, have certain interventions already in place in the event that something were to happen. Pastor Arlene, I want to ask you, I don't know if we're prying too much, but have you had experience in terms of dealing with women, especially young women, because this is gender-based violence in girls and women, and sometimes this thing transcends age. It goes sometimes for some young women, they start in abusive relationships from their teens with their boyfriends. It matures, they have grown up accustomed to that, and then from one relationship to the next, this cycle of violence keeps repeating itself. Have you had any experience with that, where you see women, they don't have the self-esteem because they've been in something like that for so long that they normalize this kind of behavior?
Yes, I have had that experience of seeing women, and I have questioned it too, because I used to get myself in a lot of problems from my window. If I see a man abusing a woman, I would stay from the window and start screaming. I'd say, why are you doing this to the women, and why are you doing that? Normal, because I never liked it. But then I'll come and question, why are you so stupid? And one woman tell me, you don't understand because you're young. When you come to understand, you're going to know. I said, no, I'm not. I'm never going to stay in an abusive relationship. But then you learn from people because of financial situations, because they see their mother go through it, because they want a man. They don't want somebody to leave them. They want somebody to be there at night. They don't want the children to grow up without a father. Mm-hmm. Right now, I have a close situation where I know the husband and wife live in the same house and they don't live good. But the wife, when I asked her why she stayed in that relationship, she said she did not want her children to grow up without a father. Now the children are all grown and they're stepping away. And you and the man living like the cat and the dog in the house. What are we doing? We're not making any sense. So I sit sometimes and say, what are you doing? For me, I would not stay in that situation. I know what I need for myself. And as we say, it's low self-esteem. And then sometimes when they go to counseling and you bring them together, as you say, when they go home, one part, you say, will you carry me to your pastor for? She could beat me, she's my mother. So that's the thing. And then the abuse escalates. So some people prefer to stay in it. They prefer to suffer in silence just because they want the show. Well, we wish them luck, but we try to do as much as we could do. As me, as a pastor, I would advise you, and I would tell you to find yourself in ways that you don't be in the situation. Because a man could never love you like Christ loved the church and beat you. You're not a drum. Verbal abuse is very bad, worse sometimes than the physical abuse. And some young girls grow up with it, and the parents have been doing it and they do it. You're going to amount to nothing. You're just like your father. You're just like this. And it lives with people that they don't know how to move on from there. So the verbal abuse sometimes take a toll on them. And because some people say, oh, you're going to never get married. Women stay in an abusive relationship to be married, to prove that abuser wrong. I can hold on to this relationship. It's a lot of things, and we got to know where it stemmed from. Because we have an example of David's son, where he saw his sister with a lust, and he raped Tamar. But when that came out, it comes out as the sins of the father. So we got to know the roots of certain things in order to deal with them. So there are certain things that comes way back from the generation that we got to deal with. Sometimes a man is all good, but he has seen a lot of stuff in his generation. He see his father with his mother. He see his father having 2 more women, and it's okay. So he feel that he could treat his wife like that. It's okay in society accepting. And they're even accepting right now sister wives. So that's the problem we have. We have to scope out these problems and know what it is that we need and how we can go around it. And as we said, our cell groups, we can speak about it. We can educate the women more. We can encourage people to speak up more about things that happen. We shouldn't only teach the Bible. The Bible is there for us to teach, but we teach the ways of life and society and let people express themselves. It goes a long way and a far way in us helping them.
Yes, certainly. I believe it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said that a church who has lost its voice has lost its relevance. And so I would want to submit to us ladies tonight that even on this topic of gender-based violence among women and girls, for the church to be able to effectively speak on it, we need to be more educated on this particular phenomenon. We need to know what is the root of it. It didn't start here and now. It has gone back generations, even the times of slavery, colonialism, and so forth, where violence was used as a tool of suppression, oppression, and then at the same time to get sexual favors, and so on. This thing, it goes very, very far and wide. And as we were talking about from the youth going into adulthood, Ramona, if you can speak to the place of the family, targeting this, not when it gets to the church, not when it gets out in the open in the family, but in the society rather, but targeting this from the level of the family to root out a culture of violence in our society.
I think, yes, thanks, Pastor T. I think one of the things that I speak a lot on our radio program, Every Woman's Voice, is that a lot of this we don't see, but it starts in the home. With us talking to our children, calling them names, doing some things, screaming at them, not giving them a voice. A lot of things, you shape them from within the home. And when this with children, their formative years between 2 and 7, those are the years that the formative years that if we keep telling our children, one of the things I've learned, shut up, sit down, you have nothing to say. We keep telling our children, you just a father, you're so stupid, you're so deaf, and these things stay with our children. And one of the things I have learned, Pastor T, and I tell people, how my parents raised me, that is not going to work completely for this generation, for my grandchildren, even for my children. I still did things a little different to how my parents did it. There are certain things you keep, the morals and values, those are things that are timeless. Yeah, I agree with that. But there are certain things, because a person like me, when you were told that children are to be seen and not heard, That is so wrong, because child finds themselves in a situation, they will not be able to defend themselves. Because an adult says it, I have to go along with it. I have to say yes. And that is wrong. We were teaching our children this thing so wrong, but it starts at home. I always tell people, my grandson will be 5 soon. When he's with me, I always give him the opportunity. What would you like to eat? Why did you do that? It's tiring because the children ask a lot of questions, but we got to take the time to answer. That's how, and guide them, and mold them, because we can't be just telling them stuff and casting them to the side and put them in front of a television or with an iPad and stuff like that. We have to take time. It's going to cost you time, but listen, it's better you do take that time now than a few years down the road, the police is knocking at your door. And for me, I want to tell us as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, whoever we are, take the time, watch what you're saying to your children. Words, as Ambassador always says, words are causal. They're not casual. We're not casually speaking. They are causal. Words cause, they live a life of their own. And when we see things happening with our children, then we begin to ask, what happened? I wonder, why did child like this? But it's the words that we speak over them. And for me, we have to be so much more careful of what we say within the home, because there's where it all starts, and then it goes out into society. And as it says, our society is only as strong as the family. If we have a weak family, our society is weak. And that for me is, my message would be to parents and the village, because I still believe it takes a village to raise a child. And although the village may look different now than it did back in the day when I was growing up, it still takes a village. You need some people in your life to help you with that child, because of course, some parents are working 2 jobs, or you're working long hours, and then children are home unattended. You need a village. You need that support system. Find you some good people, that assist you in raising these children, because it is not an easy job. With all that is coming at our children with technology and all of this, believe you me, it's not an easy job. It takes a village, and I really hope that our women understand the importance of having a support system. You don't need 10 people. 3 or 4 good people with you should be able to do the job.
Yes, definitely. I concur. And for those of you, if you've just joined us, you're watching Dada Mlinzi, which in Swahili means my sister's keeper. Sisters being together, feeling together, healing together, and rising together. And our guests on this episode have been Pastor Arlene Richardson of Bread of Life Deliverance Ministries International, and Ambassador Ramona Riley, the Ambassador of Hope and the President of Prominent Women Foundation, and the host of Every Woman's Voice on SOS Radio 95.9 FM in St.Maarten. We know that we are broadcasting from St.Maarten, but this is going wide. It's going to the ends of the earth, in the global space, in the global village, and we hope that you would have picked up something tonight that will spur you to action in being one of the solutions to gender-based violence among women and girls in our society. It's not one person's problem. It is everybody's problem. Because when you have a violent individual in the home, that violence can spill over into the society. You develop a violent society. And we don't want a violent society. We can no longer afford that. We need a peaceful society. We need a society that is fair, that is just, a society that is safe for everyone. So we were looking at the role of the church in curbing gender-based violence. And we've spanned so many different areas in discussing this topic. I want to leave us with some tips tonight. Develop protocols to help domestic violence victims. We heard it earlier. So if you haven't had a system in place yet at your level, whatever your level might be, begin to become aware, develop some protocols. Create a safe haven. Make people feel safe, not judged. Make them feel liberated to come and share what is happening with them. Teach true life cycle events. Do not wait until something would have happened. But even from the level of the pulpit and in your Bible study, Teach the fullness of the infallible Word of God, not selected scriptures. Teach on self-love and self-care and honoring and esteeming each other. Teach on the ways of peace. Work as a team as well. It is important at this time, I believe, for collective action against gender-based violence. No one person can do it. And so we need to work as teams and use the intelligence and the resources that we have available to us. Get training if you do not know. Get training. You know, the Bible tells us in all about getting, get understanding. There's nothing wrong with learning something new. As well, use your prophetic voice. That is the voice of the spiritual leaders, the voice of the church in the nation. Support children and families that are in these situations. Support them if it is financially, via counseling, via safe houses and so forth. Whatever way that you can support, then let us do our part in supporting the victims of gender-based violence. Before we close tonight, ladies, I would like to give you the opportunity to have your final words. We are definitely going to continue this topic. There is so much more that we can touch on it, and so I know that there must be a part two to this. That's the beginning. There must be a part two. But for this time, I will give you the opportunity to share your closing remarks. Pastor Richardson, you can go ahead.
You can speak out. There is always a listening ear. A problem shared is a problem half solved. So once you share your problem, somebody would be able to listen to you and run to your rescue. Do not stay and suffer in silence. It is very dangerous. That's my closing remarks for tonight.
Thank you, Pastor Richardson. Ambassador Ramona?
Yes, what I would say is an abuser will use a woman's faith to hurt her, but her faith will also play a role in her healing. And one of the things I always love to end with, as long as there's life, there is hope.
And there is definitely after abuse. Wow, you ladies have said a mouthful.
Amen. True.
Great panelists, and I know that someone has been blessed. They have been inspired. They have gotten direction. They have gotten healing. They have received hope out of tonight's program on Dada Mlinzi. That is what we are here for. Sisters, being together, feeling together, healing together, and rising together. Good night, everybody, and thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to A Life to Purpose for more on Dada Mlinzi, my sister's keeper. Good night to my sisters and my guests.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.